Hey, what's going on, Beat family? Alan back again.
Jennifer here. Hey, guys.
And we're so excited. This is our third and final video in this three-part series where we're really chronicling our journey from dating / courtship, whatever you want to call it. And in the first video, we kind of got you up to speed, but we brought you up to our engagement part. And then we took it from when we got engaged to our wedding day. We talked about what you need to look for, what's on her list, what was on my list, some intentional conversations that you need to have when you are in that dating / courtship or engagement period. And in this video, we want to talk about some myths about marriage and also mix in some tips about marriage as well, because people can sometimes be disillusioned whenever they think that marriage is going to be one way, only to get married and experience something completely different.
Absolutely. So married folks out there, this is for you. Single folks, this is for you. Engaged people, this is for you too.
Yeah.
Myths and tips about marriage.
Awesome. So we're going to jump in, guys. We got a list that we want to go over. And the first thing we want to talk about is this idea that marriage equates to happiness, right? So marriage, if I get married, ooh, here's a good one. If I get married, then I will be happy. Mm-hmm. Woo. Okay, so let me speak to that for just a moment, y'all. Listen, if you are not happy as a single person, getting married is not going to automatically make you happy, because essentially what happens is everybody reverts back to who they really are. You might have a season where you feel like joyful and bliss and happy, but if you are generally like a negative person or a pessimistic person, or maybe you're a depressed person, God bless you, don't think that marriage is going to somehow cure that and make you happy. Because once you get married, over time, you're just going to revert back to who you really are. So when you have two unhappy single people getting married, hoping that will make them happy, it ends up being an unhappy marriage.
Yeah, let's talk about this happiness thing for a little bit, because I feel like culturally right now, happiness is like a god.
The new god.
Everything is be happy. Oh, if you're not happy, then divorce him or divorce her, or hey, what happened? Oh, I just wasn't happy. And I think there's this false expectation that if you're not happy, that gives you a pass to exit. And oftentimes the happiness is within you. It's not the other person's job to make you happy. I think that is a myth in marriage, is that it is his job to make me happy. No, his job is to provide. His job is to be a leader. His job is to love me like Christ loved the church. But his job is not to make me happy. When I am not happy, I have to do a little bit of soul searching within myself this way. I have to go to God to seek happiness and purpose there. And then I have to find other things that can contribute to that. But it is not his job to make me happy.
Yeah. And guys, that is so critical, because oftentimes what happens is we're in a marriage, we're not happy, and that's, God forbid, like that's the number one reason, like, people want to get divorced because they want to find someone else who can make them happy. Now, what they don't realize, they're chasing the wind, because it's only a matter of time whenever you get with somebody else. And what are you going to do when that person doesn't make you happy? You're going to keep going from person to person. So the point of marriage, to quote Gary Thomas, is not to make you happy, it's to make you holy. Right. And so you shouldn't be chasing happiness all the time. But if you are equally yoked, and if you do have the intentional conversation, if you do all the things that we've been talking about, choose a good spouse and have a good courtship, oftentimes that happiness will naturally flow and you'll genuinely be happy in your marriage. So that's the first thing we really wanted to chat about.
Right. And then the next myth about marriage is that you have to be similar or the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you have to have everything.
You have to have everything in common.
Yeah, that is
opposites attract.
Huge myth.
We could not be more opposite.
All right, let's just go through them. Introvert.
Extrovert.
Pretty much more selfish.
Selfless.
Pretty selfless. All right. I am a stickler for being on time.
I'm a little bit more free spirit with my time.
Free spirit. Man, there's so many. I am a seminary graduate, licensed theologian. My wife is a little bit more focused on the practical Christianity side of things. So the big tip that we want to leave you with regards to your differences, because there will be some differences, is to not see your differences as liabilities, but rather as assets. When I start seeing how God has wired her differently than me as a blessing, as an asset, it actually helps me, right? Because she can start to be more on time. She can learn more theology and not just focus on carrying out. I could do better at living out my faith and not thinking I'm spiritually mature just because how much I know. And I can be a little bit more focused on being in the moment and being more relationship driven as opposed to focusing so much on task.
And I can learn to be more on time.
Yeah, let's say that again.
But you can learn from each other. And so I know that oftentimes you want to marry or date or be with someone who's just like you. You come back from that date and you feel like, oh, we have nothing in common. As long as those priorities are common, man, you can learn so much from someone and the differences that you all share because you complement each other. And so, a third myth I would say is, let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex. Okay. All right. That's a bad one. I know. That's old school salt and pepper before y'all time. All right.
Let's talk about sex in marriage.
Yeah, in marriage. There you go.
Sex in marriage.
So the myth is that sex is going to be natural and frequent. Just put two people in a room and they're going to know what to do. They know exactly how to please their partner. Everything is going to work and, the way it's supposed to, and you won't have to work at it at all. Family Feud X, right? Like, no, that's a myth.
Yeah, I think you work on a lot of things in marriage. And we did a video about
sex
and marriage and expectations. And I think naturally we work on how to be better with our finances. We work on how to, prepare for a job interview, how to better communicate. And sex is not often in that category. And I think it's definitely a myth. And the tip is that you should work at it. It is something that you should be just as intentional about growing and working in every season because it will change.
Yes.
And make it a priority to work on it, just as you do your finances, just as you do everything else that is a priority for you to grow in.
Yeah, guys. Like I said, we did a whole video on that. But just real quick, just understand that it changes from season to season, right? And we talked about that in that video where sex in one season, whenever you're a dink, dual income, no kids or whatever, when you're footloose and fancy free, it changes when you have toddlers who, you're tired and they come into your room in the morning and things like that. Like things change, seasons change. So with every season of marriage, it requires a new commitment to work and to communicate. What are your needs? How have they changed? What are my needs now? What are your expectations? Things like that. How are we doing? Are we pleasing one another? How do you feel about your body? A lot of stuff like that needs to be discussed.
And speaking of sex, let's talk about lust.
Oh, yes.
Lust and how bringing that into marriage and how lust can really change. It brings patterns in that if it's not discussed, it can lead to other problems. So
yeah, that's huge. So you want to make sure that you're careful that you're not bringing in your past sexual baggage. I mean, you're going to bring it in, but you need to make sure that you're not using that as an expectation or putting that on your spouse, right? Because you could be like, oh, well, this is what happened to me. This is what it used to be. We used to do this. I used to do that. And you got to be careful with all that because if you talk about that too much, your partner is naturally going to start to feel compared to all the people that you used to be with in the past. And that's going to create a whole bunch of insecurities in your house, in your bedroom that God really never intended.
And I think naturally we have lust when you're single. You still have lust when you're married.
Yeah.
But marriage does not cure your lust problem.
And that's another myth.
It does not cure your lust problem. It does not cure your loneliness problem. Marriage will not cure a lot of these problems that we struggle with when you're single because it puts, again, this pressure on the spouse to look a certain way all the time because you're lusting or you're struggling with lust, or it puts pressure on this other person to make you happy when marriage doesn't cure that.
Yeah. Matter of fact, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that was another myth that I think a lot of people can bring into marriage easily.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I've heard somebody say it this way: marriage doesn't solve a lot of problems. It actually magnifies a lot of problems, right? And it gives you more, creates more. I've always said it this way, and you may have heard me say this on future videos. For a lot of men who might be struggling with this area of lust, or maybe they're looking at inappropriate websites and things like that, guys, most men who are struggling with lust, they have a strong need for frequency and variety. They want sex all the time, but they also want different experiences or novelty, which is the reason why pornography is so addicting for many people, because it promises a new experience, a novel experience every time you turn on the screen. You start rewiring your brain to think that this is how sex should be, something new every time. But then you go and you're trying to be intimate with your spouse, and it's the same person every single time. Well, that's the reason why marriage can't cure that problem, because marriage, in a healthy marriage, it can fix the frequency issue, because you should be having frequent sex when you're married, but it will never fix the variety issue, which is the reason why you cannot just expect marriage to solve your lust problem.
Absolutely. And there's ways to switch it up, to make it feel new, but once again, it will not solve that.
Yeah.
I think another, and we talked about this in our dating video, is sex is obviously something you should have a conversation about, but finances. Let's talk about myths in marriage about finances. And I think going into marriage, first off, in our premarital counseling, we did talk and touch base very lightly. We touched base on these two topics, but I think what we have learned in finances in our marriage is the beauty and the importance, let me stress importance, on having flex money.
Flex money. All right, let's talk about flex money, y'all. God just laid this on our spirit about 2 months ago, because there was something that I wanted to purchase that was of significant value to me, and it was not cheap. All right.
And there was something that I wanted to purchase that was of significance value to me.
I didn't see value in it.
But he didn't see value in it.
I really want to share what it was.
No.
People are going to ask what it is.
Okay.
It's no big deal.
Okay. Just keep it with the Parr, so you might as well.
I wanted to have a new keyboard. So y'all see the keyboard that I've been playing in the worship videos and things. I wanted a new keyboard, and it wasn't cheap.
But we had another keyboard. We had a keyboard that was 20 years old.
Yeah.
20 years, but it worked. And so I didn't see the value in a new keyboard, but he did.
Okay. And then when we were on our way to Jerusalem, she wanted to spend money on what?
Well,
a lot of money.
I like to travel. And if it's over 13 hours or more of a flight, I would just like to be a little bit more comfortable when I travel. So I was looking for a slight upgrade to maybe just Comfort Plus or Business, just so I could stretch out and be comfortable on a 13-hour flight.
That slight upgrade was going to be pretty costly for 2 tickets round trip.
He didn't see the value in it.
Bottom line is I didn't see the value. So the tip is that what we had to come up with after that, because we realized that we are going to experience times in our marriage where we just don't see eye to eye, y'all, in terms of how to spend the money. And so do we both get frustrated because, you want to upgrade to first class. I want a keyboard. Are we just going to be
Comfort Plus?
Oh, my bad. Comfort Plus. Okay. My bad. Comfort Plus. All right. So what we decided was we came up with this idea of flex money, and we came up with an allocated amount every year that we could afford based on our budget and our finances at this particular time. We said, okay, you take this amount of money and I take the same amount of money, and we can do whatever we want to do with this money. You can't ask me any questions. You can't veto it. It's my flex money that I can do what I want. Praise the Lord.
And once it's out, it's out. So you have to be still a good steward of your resource,
of your flex money,
and what has been given to you, and purchase wisely.
Yeah.
But whatever that looks like for your season, the reason why we recommend this as a tip, and it doesn't have to be a large amount, it's just because In marriage, there are some things the other person will value that you may not value. And you can waste a lot of arguments trying to convince that person the value in it, where in reality, it's not bad, but they just don't see the value in it. And they just may not see the value in it. I see value in making experiences and creating experiences. I do not see value in buying name brand things or like Louis Vuitton or any of that. But I love to travel, and he loves music. He loves music and being able to hear sound the way it's supposed to be played. And I'm like, it sounds fine to me. Just record it with your iPhone.
A keyboard.
A keyboard is a keyboard. So just because I don't see the value in that does not mean that that is not an important purchase for him.
Yeah. And so, guys, the last myth that I think really brings this whole thing to a close about marriage is that some people have quote unquote good marriages and other people don't. The reality is that the people who have good marriages, they have them because they work at them. Like, that's how you have a good marriage. You have to have two people that are committed to it, who are willing to work at it. You don't just have a good marriage. No, everybody that I know who has a good marriage, they will admit to you that they work at. What is that? But you hear the term work at it all the time. But what does that really mean? What does that look like? It means communication. That means spiritually developing together, going to church together, discussing the sermons together.
Praying with your spouse.
Praying
for your spouse.
Yes, being led by the Spirit, asking for forgiveness, forgiving the spouse, having short accounts, not doing the silent treatment and the cold shoulder for 5 days in your house. Like, all that immaturity stuff has got to go, y'all.
Marriage counseling.
Hard
conversations.
Yes.
Accountability.
Yes.
Vulnerability.
Yes.
Tears. Openness. All that is work. And when I say work, it is emotional work. Sometimes it is physical work. Sometimes it's financial work. You have to budget to be able to do this work, but it is work. And it is the biggest myth that marriage will make you happy. It's going to be easy, and that it does not take work if you're with the right person.
Yeah. So guys, I hope that you guys really enjoyed this 3-part series where we chronicled our journey from dating to engagement and even into the first early years of our marriage. So if you have some more topics or questions that you would love for Jennifer and I to do together on an upcoming video, drop them in the comment section and we'll be glad to address them on another episode of Keeping Up with the Parrs. So we'll see y'all next time. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.